Hi there. Welcome to Tya Talk. It's funny. I always we're working on getting an intro for Tya Talk and for all the other shows that we do to make it just a little bit fancier. But I'm just really not that fancy with this stuff. We kind of just jump on and we're always like, "Hi, here we are." So here we are, Tya Talk, and I'm here with boot camp graduate, Tya guide, and developing Tya coach Erica Mitchell. Hi, Erica.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about ghost stories. It's Halloween week. We're going to lighten it up a little bit, unless you're really terrified of ghosts, and then maybe it's not that light for you. I don't know, but I don't think anybody's really that terrified of ghosts out there. But we have real bona fide ghost stories to share, and we're going to start with Erica. So I know you've got one from your teenage years that you want to get into, and comment. If you have a story that you want to come on and share, let us know. Maybe we can do that in a future episode. But we have all experienced paranormal activity in some form or another. And the stream gets into that in my book. And we talk about that a lot. We'll wrap all this back around to Tya at the end. But right now, I just want to hear your ghost story.
Yeah, so I have a interesting one. When I was in junior high, I grew up in a small town, and it was a slumber party we had with my soccer team. And the coach actually had us all over, and she lived in a pretty remote area of the small town that I lived in. And it was around, I think, this time of year because we dressed up for Halloween and just telling ghost stories, watching scary movies. So that energy was just flowing. Um, but there ended up being a really bad storm that night. And it was just interesting because, the power went out.
It was just
And
like it sounds like
so,
a horror movie already.
yeah, no, for sure. But, well, I'll get into that. But yeah, so the power went out and, lit candles, all of us teenage girls. It was just the mom there. And so it was just a bunch of girls. And so we were pretty freaked out. Um, and it was storming pretty bad. So, the lightning coming through the house with the power out. It was like a movie. And then all of a sudden, sparks flew out of the TV. I guess lightning had hit the antenna. I don't know, but it was just kind of a crazy situation. And in talking about the energy realms, and in one of our talks prior, you had talked about how you kind of welcome that in. I think just with all of our scary stories and being in that mindset, we kind of, I don't know, but it was pretty freaky. It was kind of hard to sleep. I kind of wanted to go home to my bed that night, but
Well, you all created this sort of experience
yeah.
with your focus, which is what again everything is law of attraction. Really, everything is our own creation. So you get together and everybody is wanting to have this kind of spooky experience, and you're wanting something to happen, and you are creating it. You're creating the reality.
Yes, so it was super, yeah, super interesting. But it's scary at the time, because being Halloween this time of year, things tend to be a little spookier for sure.
Well, I grew up in the deep South. I grew up in a little town called Minden, Louisiana, and there was all kinds of creepy stories around Minden. In fact, if you ever heard of Bonnie and Clyde were actually killed. They were captured and killed right outside of my hometown. So we
Oh my
had
goodness.
all that weird Southern stuff. Like Elvis Presley played his first concert in my hometown, and that we have all these crazy stories from being this little tiny town in North Louisiana. But we always had these crazy ghost stories too, and the crazy ghost stories were fun. I never had experiences. We would go out. There was a grave site. It was Sally Baker's grave, and if you went to Sally Baker's grave, at midnight, you could see her roaming around and all. Yeah, I think every little town has all those little stories. And
Mhm.
I got into stuff like that, but I never saw anything that I thought was authentic. My authentic stuff was more me having an experience that was very unexpected at a time in my life when the energy was really shifting. And I think a lot of people in childhood, we see all kinds of things. And think of how scared little kids are of things because they're so connected to the energetic realm. And we're kind of telling them that that's not real, that's in your imagination, you need to pay more attention to 3D. And so they're sort of shutting all of that down and moving into adolescence and sort of learning how to be an adult, essentially.
Right.
And that you're not allowed to think about these crazy things or these spooky things or whatever. And that if you believe in ghosts, that people are going to think that you're, silly or whatever. And so I had experiences when I was a kid that were very, very real to me. And the very first experience I remember was we went to visit. My parents were still together, and my father left when I was 6. So this had to be, I had to be like 4 or 5 years old. It's one of my first memories. And I
Yeah.
remember my brother and my dad slept in my grandparents only had one guest room and had twin beds. My brother and my dad slept in there, and my mother and I slept on the pull-out sofa in the living room. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and seeing my mother's face as this sort of ghoulish. I'll never forget it
Oh
to
my
this
goodness.
day. I mean, I'm 53, so that's what, 50 years ago. Uh, this ghoulish figure, and I'll never forget it. And I don't know what it was about, really. If you read my book, I had this interesting relationship with my mother. Certainly, she was
Absolutely.
not the highest vibe person on the planet, but I didn't remember really having a horrible relationship with her at that stage. Things got much worse after my father left, but I remember seeing this really ghoulish figure. And I think now I was kind of seeing a version of her that was yet to come because she ended up
Right.
being a ghoulish figure in my life for a while. So I remember seeing that's one of the first things I remember seeing that I couldn't explain. And
Hmm.
I was really little. The next thing that I remember was when I was 6, 7 years old. My grandfather passed away. My father had left. My mother immediately moved us back to her hometown in North Louisiana, and my grandfather was watching us every day. And then within the first year that we lived there, he just suddenly died. And I actually liked my grandfather. He was just this easygoing, kind of fun guy, and nobody in my life was fun at that point. My parents were hating each other, and my mother was,
Right.
teaching us to hate our father, and and sort of unraveling. And so it was just kind of cool that my grandfather would show up and just be this kind of silly old guy. And I liked
Hmm.
that. Well, suddenly he was gone from my life, and I remember walking outside. We lived in this apartment complex, and walking outside playing, and I was in the parking lot of the apartment complex, and he appeared to me just just as real as it could be, him standing next to his blue Chevrolet Impala. And there he was. And this was, again, this was years and years, this was early 70s. And he was right there, and then suddenly he just wasn't. And so I remember that, and he was fully clothed, just regular looking self, but he had just died. But there he was,
Right.
nonetheless. So I remember those stories from early childhood. I remember a story from when I was a teenager. Um, I was taking a nap on the sofa in the living room one day, and I woke up, and this was the first thing that was really, really creepy. There was this figure standing in front of me, and it was sort of that twilight state of being, asleep and awake. And there was this figure that was all cloaked in black, and it was a completely blacked out figure, and just standing over me, looking at me. It was like something you would think of like the angel of death or something like that. Yeah, and I was a kid.
Creepy.
And it was a really odd time in my life where I was really tormented. I've told the story a million times about, like sort of being sort of suicidal thoughts, and my mother wasn't
Yeah.
really helpful with all that. And
Right.
so that having that sort of angel of death figure standing over me, I remember that. I remember that very, very, very clearly. Um, And
Yeah.
then the next thing I remember is when I was probably 17 or so. This is in the book also. I had actually moved out of my mother's house, and I was living with this friend of mine out in the country, way out in the country. And they had built this newer house, but they had this old barn that was part of the original homestead that was there. And I had never shot a gun. I didn't have a father. We didn't have, my father wasn't around. He wasn't into guns at all. And most boys where I grew up hunted and shot guns. And it was weird that I didn't know how to shoot a gun. And I didn't really care about it that much. But his uncle, the friend of mine, had to go to work that one day. I think it was a Saturday, and I was there alone. And the uncle comes and gets me up at 5 a.m. to go chop down trees out in the woods, which was actually kind of a cool experience. I enjoyed the chopping down the trees, so I helped him with all that. And then when we were done, he's like, "Oh, you should go load up one of the guns and go shoot." And I wasn't from the country; I was from a small town, but I wasn't really a country person. And I'm like,
That's
it wasn't in my realm of reality, this whole idea of just, why in the hell would I want to go load a gun and just go randomly shoot stuff? But okay, fine. I'm out in the country, I'm having this experience.
what guys do, right?
Well, and the stupid thing is that I did not want to tell him that I didn't know what I was doing. He just assumed that I was a boy and I knew how to load a gun and shoot it. And so he gives me this gun and this shotgun and these shells. He's like, "Go shoot." I'm like, "Okay." And so I take the gun and I'm like trying to figure out how to load this stupid gun. And I'm about to shoot the gun, having no clue what I'm doing. I mean, I knew to point it at something that I wanted to, shoot at and that sort of thing.
Right.
But I had no clue how to load a gun or what I was doing. I could have really, hurt myself or somebody else in the situation.
Yeah, and they didn't have YouTube back then.
Yeah. And so I go behind. Yeah, that's true. I learned how to do everything on YouTube now. But I go behind the barn because I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, I need to figure out how to shoot this damn gun because he's expecting me to shoot the gun. Why I put all this pressure on myself, I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out how to load this gun, and then this guy shows up in these overalls, and he showed up and he showed me how to load the gun. And I just thought, okay, it's one of the uncle. I don't remember the uncle's name. It's one of the uncle's friends must have shown up, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing there? Here, let me show you how to do that." And he showed me how to load the gun. I mean, literally showed me how to load the gun. And so I loaded the gun, and I went and just did some target shooting with some, like some Coke cans and stuff like that. And then after that had happened, I came back to the house and discovered that nobody had been there. No, and they lived so far remote. It wasn't like a neighbor would just happen up. I mean, this house was out in the middle of nowhere, nothing around, and found out that there was nobody there except the uncle and his wife, and nobody had come to visit and nobody was there. So I was really perplexed, and I didn't want to tell them about this guy that showed up because I was very religious. And they were already suspect of me. They were into PTL. Remember the PTL club? Jim and Tammy Faye.
Oh, okay, yes.
You're probably too young to remember that. Sorry. I give these references and age myself. Well, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker had this big religious organization, and they were into that, and they were very, very religious people. So they were into all that stuff, and I was really perplexed by what had happened. And once I found out that nobody was there, and also I was still embarrassed about not being able to load the gun, so I kind of just kept it to myself. So I didn't say anything about it. I'm like, who in the hell was this guy that showed me how to load this gun? It was a weird experience. I thought he was, this friend of theirs. Who was this person that just happened to wander up and show me this? Well, a little time goes by, and they go actually to visit Jim and Tammy. They go to the theme park. There was a PTL club.
Oh gosh.
Religious themed theme park somewhere out on the East Coast. And they went to visit this theme park. It was their annual vacation. They went every year to this PTL, whatever this theme park was. And so Danny, the guy that I lived with, in the book, his name is different. The guy that I lived with, the friend, we had a party. And we had people over, and we had booze, and we rolled some weed, and we just had this, it was an 80s high school party, right? Yeah. And so we thought we cleaned it all up. And one day we're just in our room, playing video games or watching TV or whatever. And then suddenly I hear his aunt scream, "What's a whiskey cap doing in the Lord's house?" We were like,
"Oh gosh."
Well, it was a beer cap, but she called it a whiskey cap because, drinking, you're going to burn in hell.
Anything, yeah.
Of alcohol, you're going to burn in hell, right? So what's a whiskey cap doing in the Lord's house? And she said it just like that. And she came, storming into the room, and she was so upset that there was a beer cap in her house. Very, very, very upset. And we were obviously in trouble. And then the uncle comes in, and he is like, I thought he was going to kill both of us for having
Yeah.
this beer cap in the house. And he's so upset that he's almost crying. He's mad, so mad that he's almost crying. And we get the whole speech about how the whiskey is the Lord's juice and we're going to burn in hell and we can't have any alcohol because that's just the devil and all this stuff. And so they leave, and the uncle leaves, and the aunt stays there. And she says, you know why this is so upsetting? Because the uncle, that was his homestead, and the barn was the barn, and his father was an alcoholic, and his father committed suicide with a shotgun behind the barn.
Oh. So he came to help you.
My skin's crawling just telling the story.
I know. No.
I mean, that's a real story. That is a real story that actually happened.
Yeah.
To this day, still, I think back, I'm like, holy shit. You know, I mean, I know that I have a relationship with the energetic realm. Obviously, I channel and all that stuff. Everybody does. But
Right.
just that whole idea of putting those dots together of, oh my God, you know, this person appeared to help me load the shotgun. And then I find out that the uncle's father had killed himself with a shotgun behind the barn where I was.
Yeah.
So that's my best ghost story that I have.
No, I have one, you know, similar to your grandfather's story in that, like I had mentioned in a previous talk, in 2014, my longtime boyfriend and the father of my daughters passed away. And so right after that time, we had some weird stuff happening in our house. And so we had some friends over, and my oldest daughter had some of her friends over, and they were sitting in the living room and they had drinks on the coffee table. And out of nowhere, two of the cups just flipped over and started spilling, you know, everywhere. And so my oldest comes running out to me, you know, come look at this. Well, then her friend went to go use the bathroom, and I don't know why, but girls and selfies, you know, in the mirrors. Well, she took a picture, but it came out black. So she went ahead, and my girls are into very, you know, all the scary movies. And so they know all the tricks or whatever. But she ended up putting the picture, the black picture, through a filter, and it brought up a face. And it looked like Matthew when he was younger, because he used to have long hair back in the 80s. And it looked like a young picture of him in the black, in the black screen once it was put through a filter. So it was kind of interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And then a couple weeks later, after his services, and I knew that this was going to happen, I just didn't know when. But my middle daughter, she went out to get something out of the fridge in the garage, and it was dark, and she screamed. And so I came running. You know, what happened? And she's like, I saw dad. But it was, in the garage.
I like how you said you knew it was going to happen, you just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So you felt like he was going to definitely visit each of his children?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you knew that. That's cool that you knew that too.
Yeah. Wow. So just some interesting.
Well, that picture thing is that's really a cool. I've never heard anything just like that. That's really a cool story. I like that.
Yeah, it was surreal, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When again, we're all connected to the energetic realm, and the stream has really gone into this. In the book, we go into it a little bit, and we've gone into it a little bit since then. We are perceiving a 3D physical environment, but we're also part of the energetic realm all the time. So all of that energy is all around us all the time. But it seems like there are these things, these events that cause it to sort of spike for us, where we allow the sort of creation of these experiences, right?
Right.
We perceive it as he came to visit. And I think there's a lot of comfort in that. And there's nothing wrong or about any of that. But I believe that energy is always there.
Right.
It's
No,
just
I feel it all the
experience
time.
that we create together in maybe part of the grieving process that creates this heightened activity when somebody that we really care about crosses over.
No, I agree too. Because there's that sense there's that sense that they're still there, even though
Sure,
you
well,
can't see
yeah, their
them.
energy absolutely has to be there.
Right. And then I think there's just those breakthrough moments, where it's like you're allowing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of what else. I had some other little things that happened, but I remember my first partner, Troy. We were together for 20 years, and his mother, about 15 years into our relationship, his mother died suddenly. And the day she died, we had this. We were remodeling this house in Florida, and we had it was about a 20-year-old house, and there were some things that we were doing and some things that we were kind of leaving the same, but we cosmetically we changed everything. And there was this light in the foyer that was over this painting, and since we wanted to kind of leave the light on the painting just all the time 24/7, we didn't bother to. The switch was actually behind the painting.
Okay.
And so when we remodeled the house, we kind of thought, well, we'll just leave that light on all the time, so it doesn't matter. We don't need to move the switch. It was a weird place. The switch was like right in the middle of the wall, and we just hung this big painting over it, and just had this little light hitting the painting, and we just left it alone. Well, at some point, we had turned it off, and we weren't, it would have been months and months and months, and it had just been off. You kind of just get like, okay, we're paying all this electricity to light up this one painting. And the day she died, that light just came back on its
Oh,
own.
wow.
And the switch was, but you have to take this giant painting off the wall to
To
turn the
flip
switch
this.
on. And and all of the upset about, having to rush over to where she was, and so he could see her in the hospital and all this stuff. She had passed away, but obviously he wanted to get over there and sort of see her one last time. And we got back home, and it was sort of like we just kind of like, wait, did you take the painting down and turn the light on? No, I didn't. Why would I do that? And then we realized that light had obviously come on the day she died, and we left it on
Right.
until we sold the house uh,
Yeah.
after that. But it's interesting that was kind of how she expressed her presence to him, was in that light
Yes.
coming on. But we had other weird stuff happen in that house also. If you hear about, it was interesting because I had this. I was really starting to explore my channeling, and I was going to psychics, and I was really getting into anything paranormal because I was so connected that I realized, okay, that I've got to figure out what this is, and I need to. I'm very self taught.
Yes.
I essentially taught myself how to speak the stream. I'm very self
Right.
taught in a way, but I needed to explore for myself what this was that I was getting. I
Mhm.
really wanted to understand it. And so I would go see psychics, and I was really into paranormal stuff, and I was watching, the ghost shows on TV and all this. And I started creating these scenarios where I was interacting more with the energetic realm. And in 2002, we had bought this loft in Orlando, and it was brand new. It wasn't some old haunted house. It was a brand new loft building where they built, that was kind of a trend back then, where they built all these, kind of loft style condos. And we bought
Right.
this loft style condo, and I was in bed one morning, and I remember waking up, and there was this woman lying next to me in bed. And
No.
those who know me know that that's not a normal thing for it to happen in my life. And it wasn't like a sexual thing at all, but there was this woman lying next to me. And I remember she had long brown hair, and she was just laying there. And I remember waking up thinking, well, this is interesting. What the hell are you doing here?
Right.
And she's just laying there. And I'm like, all right, well, obviously I'm still dreaming. You're not real. And so as soon as I said, I don't remember if I spoke it or if I thought it, you're not real, she went like that. I felt the wind hit my face,
Oh my goodness.
and then she was gone.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was very, very weird, but it wasn't creepy or spooky or, anything scary or anything like that. It was
Right.
just like, what the hell was that? I just felt it. And then I got up and showered and went to work. And so I wasn't asleep when that happened. But the
Yeah.
interesting thing is, I'm just now connecting these dots, though. That's what led me to Hazel Burley in Casadega the woman that told me that I was a channel and told me what channeling was. So that
Okay.
experience, I just realized that.
Yeah, that
I've never
experience.
connected those dots because when I said 2002, I know that's when I saw Hazel, and I just realized that's why I went
That
to
was
that's why I went to Casadega. So maybe
that's
that was
awesome.
the dream saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're here."
Yeah.
A very interesting way. I don't know. That was really I never thought about that until just then.
Well,
That
it's
was
super funny.
my yeah.
There's a comment from I don't know who, Facebook user, but it says feels more like your daughter was aligned with his energy. And for sure, absolutely.
Oh
But
yeah,
that's me with you. Like I would think you would have quite a few of those experiences just because you're so in tune like with the energetic realm as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I like Francois. She was trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. Yes. I
Yeah.
get those calls every day. I don't know why people are trying to. What is that? Is that big of a business?
I don't know.
I have my phone set to where if I don't know who's calling me, I'm not even aware of it. Um,
Right.
and so sometimes I'll see these messages, and it's like always someone trying to call me about my warranty. It's so weird that happens so much. So that happened, and then we sold that loft and we bought this house north of Orlando, and we started remodeling it. And I was kind of getting into flipping houses at this time. And when there was a room, we actually gutted the whole house and we lived there during it, which I don't ever recommend doing. But we lived there in the house and we were remodeling the whole thing. And there was a room at the very front of the house, and it was this cute little room and had this big Palladian window, and had been a children's nursery. The people that we bought the house from were using it as a nursery. And as far as I know, everything was cool in the nursery. So I decided I was really into to painting things really dark back then. Like the whole house was chocolate brown, and I know it's
Okay.
really weird, but it was really kind of cool back then. And I was always painting. I always painted something red in every single house back then. And I had this Ralph Lauren red that I really loved, is specific red, and I would do a wall or something red in every single place that we lived. Well, I wanted this room up front to be my red room,
Oh gosh.
and it was just going to be this really cool room that was painted red, and and so the painter was painting it this red, and the paint wouldn't take on the wall. Like he would paint the wall, and the paint would just shrivel up and not adhere to the wall.
Oh, how weird.
And he said he prepped the wall, he primed it, he did all
Right.
the things you're normally supposed to do, to repaint a room, and the paint just wouldn't take. And we tried it a couple of times. Well, finally, we had the actual manufacturer of the paint sent a rep to the house, and because they'd never heard of their paint not sticking to primer, and they could not explain why the paint wasn't sticking.
Oh, that's
And so
weird.
we were trying to paint it red, and then we just kind of left the room alone for a little bit, not knowing what to do with it, and it kind of became like the storage room in the house because
Okay.
we were remodeling everything, and we weren't sure when I kind of just thought, well, we'll just figure that room out later. And we were sitting around, one evening after dinner, and in Florida, you don't leave your windows open because it's so humid outside. So there's no cross ventilation or cross breeze in the house. And we're sitting there, all of a sudden, wham! The door to that room just slammed shut.
Oh,
And we kind of thought, all right, we're not going to go south. I kind of went back there and looked around. I'm like, there aren't any windows. I did open it. I'm like, there's no windows open. I'm just going to leave this room the hell alone. I don't know what that was, but there's no reason that this door would have slammed so violently like that. And so a few days later, we went back into the room, and there were dead termites everywhere.
oh
Like the
wow.
whole room was just covered in dead termites. And we had a termite swarm. But the guy said, well, the termite swarm came up through an outlet. Like there were termites under the house, and they came up through an electrical outlet and swarmed. And if you've ever had a termite swarm, it's like a million termites. They swarm and then they all die. And
Oh,
so the
how
whole
weird.
room was just covered in dead termites. But I said, well, will that have caused the door to slam? He goes, well, no, there's no way that would have caused the door to slam. The termite swarm wouldn't have caused that. Plus, I didn't see any termites when we checked the room that night. And so that was really, really weird. Well, after that, I decided to go in a whole different direction and to paint the room this bright color and kind of make it this more just brighter type, beige room, and everything was fine after that.
Oh,
It was like, and I can't explain it to this day. It's like the
yeah.
house didn't want the room to be that dark color.
Right. Maybe
The
somebody
only thing
didn't.
and we never had
Yeah.
a real problem in that house,
They didn't
but
like the red.
it didn't like the red. The house just didn't like, because even the paint manufacturer couldn't understand, what that was. That was the only problem that we had in that house. So then we sold that house and moved to Seattle. And when we moved to Seattle, that's when we moved into the house that was truly like living in a haunted house. Because I'd seen Hazel. I had found out about, what channeling was, and what was going on with me and all this stuff. So I was really getting into all this stuff. Well, while we were getting into it, for some reason, it was instilling a lot of fear still back then in both of us, my partner and myself at the time.
I could imagine.
And so we bought this house at the top of this mountain in Bellevue, Washington. And again, it was about a 20-year-old house. It
Hmm.
wasn't super old, and as far as I know, it didn't have any weird history or anything like that. We conjured so much crap. It was like living literally in a haunted house. Right away, and it was a much bigger house than the house that we've been in before, and it was 2 stories, and it was creaky. It was kind of creaky, and it was cold and windy up there on the top of this mountain. So we had all that going on, all that haunted house type, stuff going on around it. But I remember distinctly sitting in the family room downstairs at night watching TV and hearing footsteps upstairs. Like, and you're like, what the hell is that? And we would go check, and the house was really big and it had a lot of unused rooms. We had all these bedrooms that we didn't even really use.
Hmm.
So I had parts of the house I wouldn't go in for months and months and months. But hearing the footsteps, we'd go up and check, and there's nobody in the house. So then we started getting more creeped out by it. So momentum started building, and we would just have like weird things, creaks and bumps and stuff. And then it started being electrical. One of the things that started happening is the we had these 2 ovens in the kitchen that were the same oven, but they were in 2 different places.
Okay.
And I know that sounds crazy, but it was like it was a big kitchen, and there was like a regular oven here, and then there was a second version of it right over there. And the lights to these ovens would just turn themselves on.
Oh,
Boop.
well.
And it would just turn on and off randomly for no reason. And so that was kind of weird. I'm like, okay, that's explainable. That could be an electrical glitch in that appliance or something. No big deal. And then again, it just more stuff started happening. And we started getting really creeped out by it. And there was one day when 2 black crows flew into the house on different sides of the house and died.
Oh, whoa.
Because we had this, the one end of the house had this big formal living room and dining room, and had these huge windows front and back. And one flew into this window and one flew into the other window on the same day.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. It was like something out of a horror movie. It gets worse. It gets worse.
Oh.
So we're getting all this momentum building around this. And this was around the same time that the movie Paranormal Activity came out, the first one, the one that was really creepy. And so
Okay.
we're getting creeped out by the movie, and we're getting creeped out by the house. And so we're stirring up all of this energy. I'm really going into, what is this channeling thing? Am I channeling dark energy? All of these things that you just, when you don't know what's going on out there and you're not really clear and you're still fearing and judging it, you're
Right.
having this experience, right? So there was a lot of other little things happened here and there that were creepy for sure. But one of the creepiest, two super creepy events kind of led to this sort of peak of this experience. I was sitting back in that family room one day, and we had a fireplace, and there were bookshelves flanking the fireplace. And I was reading. I was probably reading some paranormal thing, some
Hmm.
something. And I hear this noise, and I looked over, and it came from on the shelves. We had these pictures, like a picture frame that leans back on a little leg, or an easel or whatever. And I heard it, and I thought I saw it move. And then while I was looking at, after it got my attention, while I was looking at it, it fell over forward right in front of me. I mean, it went and then forward. And so right away, I'm like, is there a rat or is it the cat? But our cat was 12 years old and very rarely moved from the dining room chair where he lived all the time. And I was like, Troy, get down here. Something just
Yeah.
happened. And I was freaked. I was sitting in the chair. I'm like, get down. I'm like, that picture just fell. And, the dogs were asleep. The cat was asleep in the dining room. And there was nothing around. I didn't see any sign of a, rat or anything like that. And I said, that picture just moved and fell forward right in front of me. And I thought it was a picture of one of our old dogs that had passed away. And I said, is that a picture of Jordan? And he picked it up. He goes, no, that's a picture of you. And it was
Oh,
a picture of me from childhood.
almost. See, you were looking at it. It was like almost like it was trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
Something.
Well, and it was messing with me, right? But I
Right.
now that I was the one that was sort of conjuring and creating the experience for sure. But
Right.
it definitely happened. Well, it gets better. So I don't know how much time goes by, but not too long after that, we were really getting creeped out by the house.
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the night, we heard this major crash, and I walked out of the bed, and our bedroom was upstairs. You kind of walk out to this balcony, and it was this big 2-story foyer with a chandelier hanging down, and the stairs kind of went around it. And we walk out of the master bedroom, and the chandelier in the foyer had crashed to the floor in the middle of the night.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we go into the foyer. We get it all cleaned up because there's glass everywhere. There's a big gouge in the floor, and we just got it all cleaned up and decided, well, I don't know what to do next. Let's just go back to bed. And we go to bed, and the dogs follow us, and the dogs get into the bed because we're all creeped out. And then suddenly we heard a scream from the closet.
I couldn't.
Not kidding. Not
Oh
kidding at
my
all. The dogs
gosh.
heard it. We heard it. And we were both like, what the hell was that?
Right.
So we had a friend that was into all of this stuff who came over, and we did a whole blessing of the house.
Yeah.
A blessing and a clearing of energy and all of that stuff. And I already understand. I understood at this point giving things power.
Right.
And you like rituals. Rituals have the power that we give to them, right? So
Absolutely.
I remember saying, if we give this ritual power, it will work. And it did.
Mm-hmm.
After that cleansing, and she came through and she said, there's negative energy. And of course, the bedroom she said, there's really heavy energy in the bedroom over the family room. And then we had a 3-car garage, and the far part of the garage that we didn't have a car in. She said, something happened out here. There's super heavy energy out here. So we did a whole clearing of all of that and never had a problem again.
Did you ever look into it to see like from prior homeowners? No.
No, I mean, I Googled a little bit and stuff like that, but I didn't,
Right.
I'm not the type that I'm not going to go down to town hall and,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Pull up all the records.
I Googled and I asked one of the neighbors, and there was no awareness of anything.
Okay.
But again, the house is 20 years old. So who knows what could or could not have happened that would have brought that sort of thing in. I think we brought it in.
Yeah.
We probably brought some energy in, and there was probably something else that transpired there that maybe
Right.
created something. But I think we were the creators of it, because after that was when I had my Kundalini awakening in 2010 in that house. That's where
Okay.
the dream really kind of expanded and started becoming what it is today. And my whole experience sort of started there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that was just the sort of my path to discovering all of this, was me getting more deeper understanding of the energetic realm and learning to not fear it. Because
Absolutely.
giving that blessing power, I felt empowered to not fear it. And so that was a big change for me, that oh, I'm creating all this. I took this from a loft in Orlando to a house in Heathrow, Florida, north of Orlando, all the way to Seattle, Washington.
Right.
This sort of string of 3 hauntings in a row.
Yeah.
We're my partner and I'm like, we're the common denominator here. We're the common factor here that's creating all of this. And I have
Right.
to say, since all that, I have never, when I moved to Palm Springs, I moved into a mid-century 60-year-old house. Never
Uh-huh.
had an issue there. Um, you know, just I've never had anything like that happen again, because I'm not fearing it, and I'm not looking for it, and my belief system is not wrapped around some dark energy projecting itself in.
Right.
The dark energy, I believe, is our own creation, our own fear, our own
Mm-hmm.
conjuring of something of that nature. So the conjuring of the connection to loved ones, of course they're of the energetic realm, and of course we're going to see sort of a version that we can make sense of or have an experience. I think those created experiences are really cool now. If you take the fear and judgment out,
Yes.
like the experience with your daughter, how cool is that?
I know.
You know, it's only creepy because movies sort of make it creepy to scare you and sell tickets.
Right.
But having that experience, you know, it was sort of like something that got your attention enough to realize that his energy was still present and still is. And it was just confirmation of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I often wonder, because there are people that are mediums, they're on TV and stuff like that. And I wonder if, much like you, they've allowed themselves not to let it be dark, not to let it be creepy, just to kind
Yeah.
of allow that connection, to that energy that's all around us.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, it was creepy and freaked me out at the time because I was making it that. But now
Right.
looking past it, I'm like, well, none of it ever harmed me.
Yeah.
None of those experiences brought any harm to my life whatsoever. And how often do you hear about someone being harmed by a ghost?
Yeah. Not
And
often.
yeah, and I wrote an article the other day that we haven't published it yet, but it was sort of about how Satan or the devil or dark energy is so often used as a scapegoat. If you think about it, and
Absolutely.
if you look across the history of humanity, how much death and destruction is carried out in the name of God as opposed to the name of that.
Right.
And
Right.
even in spirituality, very often we talk about demonic or dark energy and that dark energy. And I understand the perception of that because I have definitely had experiences where it felt like heaviness.
Hmm.
Once you claim ownership of your energetic experience and stop fearing it, then it
Right.
doesn't. It's not anything that's out there that's projecting itself in and forcing itself on you. It is something that we are creating in our lower vibrational state when we're separated from source. And if you think about all negative things that happen in our world can all be traced back to our own fear and judgment. All of it.
Right.
Sorry, I shifted gears and got a little heavy here, but
No.
the ghost stories are so, and I've got cool ghost stories. I get it, but the fearing of it, and if you think about what Tya is, to sort of circle back to Tya, since this is Tya Talk, everything is so tied to how we perceive it and how we, if we judge it and we fear it, and we stop
Right.
judging and fearing, suddenly none of those experiences were horrible experiences. Yeah, we had to buy a new chandelier, but it was also the momentum we were creating and the fearing of the house.
Right. And I think when you see, like prior to this call, I wanted to look up like the most haunted cities or places in the US. And just thinking about that, I think when you hear those stories and then you go to maybe a house or, the hospitals are supposed to be haunted, you're carrying that perception and then you make it the reality that it is.
Yeah, yeah, we create the reality. You're right. So the idea of fearing something, what are you attracting when you're fearing it? What are you attracting
Right.
when you're judging it as negative or evil or awful, and you're fearing it? The universe is saying yes,
Right.
right? The universe says yes to everything. So if we are judging or fearing, and it's something that is creating this scenario for us, that fear is just attracting more of it. And I
Right.
completely see that now. I'm looking at the momentum from having this experience of the woman appearing in the bed, which led me to Casadega, which led me to channeling. That was
Right.
a positive path, right?
Yeah.
My fearing of it, it probably was like this was a weird experience, and I've watched horror movies, so I'm supposed to be afraid of that. And then I carried that to the next house, and then we started stirring up these negative things that happened there, or these creepy things that happened there, that we started fearing some more. And then we built even more momentum moving to
Right.
this, again, house on the top of a hill. And I can be very impulsive. I have bought houses on impulse before. In fact, the
Uh-huh.
first house I ever bought, I walked into the house and said, we'll take it.
Yeah.
The second I walked into the house, and the realtor and my partner was like, "What?" And the realtor was like, "All right, let's write a contract." And that literally is how I bought my first house. Well, the house in Seattle was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
I go up the top of this hill, beautiful sunny day in Seattle, which doesn't happen very much. The weather had not yet really gotten bad there when I bought it. Go up to the top of the hill, see this amazing view that this house has. It's this big palatial house, and
Oh,
it has so much potential. And that's what I saw. Well,
right.
you buy the house, you move there, and you realize, oh wait, every time it snows, getting up this hill in the snow, there's a whole story behind that. And the wind at night and the coldness all the time. I mean, the
Well,
house
just
was always cold no matter what.
such a different climate than Orlando, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so even in a
I created a whole experience where I lived in this big,
Mhm.
cold, creepy house at the top of a mountain
Right.
in this area that was gray and rainy and snowy most of the time, but that wasn't the version of it I got the day that I decided, oh, this is the house, right?
Yeah.
So, you move into that environment, and then suddenly it is because it's dark and it's kind of creepy and creaky, and then you just allow that fear to bring more momentum. But then you actually are, it wasn't just a perception of noise. It was
Right.
actual things. It moved all the way into things actually moving in front of me, and chandeliers falling, and,
Oh
and
my
audible
gosh.
screams that was more than just me experiencing, but it was like
Yeah.
a collective consciousness of fear that created all of that. Because as soon
Yeah.
as we did the blessing, it just stopped.
Right.
So if you have the power to change it that quickly, it shows you that your power was the thing that was creating it in the first place.
Right. And just how powerful our beliefs are, you
Yeah.
know?
So just think about that in terms of anything that's going on in your life. You can shift if you're haunted by something, and it doesn't have to be anything creepy or ghoulish. If you're haunted by your past, or you're haunted by, a mindset, you have the power to change it because you created it in the first place. It's
Yeah.
your created reality that you are interacting with, that you're perceiving. And if you give power to something to change you, that's the first thing that we say in boot camp: is drink the Kool-Aid, give this the power, and it will be the thing that changes your life. And it does.
Hmm.
So that's true for anything and everything, and that's why a practice has a lot of value, because the practice creates the rituals and the tools and all those things that bring about the change that you want. So all of the things that you're haunted by in your life, you have the power to change them right now. As quickly as I changed the haunted house, you have the power to change that stuff.
Right. That's so awesome to think about
Yeah.
it that way. I know I'm a big ritual ritual type person, mornings. I like the same routine and everything like that. But those have really helped me along, to
Yeah,
change
well,
my
it's
perspective.
sort of a ritual. First of all, if you're giving power to the ritual, of course the ritual is going to have power because
Yeah.
you are the power. But also, if it's habitual ritual,
Yeah.
if it's habitual, then you are retraining your subconscious mind, which we talk about a new operating system for
Mhm.
your life. That's Tya is
Right.
the operating system for your life. When you're doing it as a practice all day, every day, then that starts to change your subconscious, which starts to change your reality.
Yeah.
So,
So
any comments?
interesting.
Do you have any more ghost stories? Are we tapped out of ghost stories now? I think we
I
we
you
shared
had a
our.
lot. You had a lot, but like I said, I could see that just how, you're really connected to that energy just like I knew my daughter would be too. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
Luke is talking about my experience in the house could be a whole horror movie. The interesting thing is that
Yes.
this was going on when the last horror movie series I ever watched was Paranormal Activity, and since then I just don't. It's not interesting to me anymore. But the first Paranormal Activity I thought was really creepy, and we saw it at this old theater in Seattle. I forget the name of it. It's right by University of Washington. It's this historic theater there, and so it was a really cool place in this old, kind of creepy theater, kind of gothic theater, to see this. And it was at midnight that we saw the first movie, and it was really well done because it was shot on a home camera, and it was back when they were doing all those found footage, or like what's the other one that was really creepy?
Oh, yes. Yes, Blair Witch.
Yeah, Blair Witch creeped me out for sure. I remember seeing Blair Witch, and that really creeped me out. That was really well done. Well, this was really creepy too. I thought it was really well done, and all of this stuff was happening in my house around the time of that movie. And the chandelier falling in my foyer happened. And I know there were some other paranormal activity movies, and we did see them as they came
Mhm.
out, and they weren't the same. It's like somebody else
Right.
produced them or something. I think it was like the third paranormal activity. The chandelier in the foyer fell, and it was after that happened in my house.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it was kind
Well,
of like the things that happen in our house are happening in this movie series, and it's
well,
happening in the series after it happened in my house. It was really weird. It was so weird.
yeah, my older daughters, they've always been into scary movies, and I do. I remember going to see Paranormal Activity with them, taking them to see it, and so interesting because we had some friends that moved into a new house, and we went to go visit them, and it had the bedroom in the same place with the long hallway and then the stairs at the same as the movie, and we all got freaked out. We're like, "You guys can't live here. This house is the same."
Yeah,
But again, it's that giving that power to, right? And so
yeah.
when
Well,
you're
the
in,
cool thing about that movie too is that it was very much like a suburban track type house. It could
right,
be any house in America, almost anywhere, and they knew what they were doing. They made it. They really connected. I think in that movie, if you want to be creeped out, I don't
yeah,
like to be creeped out anymore. I'm not. I think it's cool if you're into it, you're into it. But it just doesn't. It does. It's not the thrill that it used to be. When it used to creep me out, it was more enjoyable to watch. But now it's just kind of like, It's
yeah.
it doesn't scare me anymore
I've
so much.
never been a fan.
Yeah.
Never been a fan of scary movies too much because I'll let them go crazy in my head. So sometimes I just like to stay away.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense for
Yeah,
sure. So we all have our ghost stories. I think everybody has something that's happened because again, we're all connected to the energetic realm. It's there, and I think in childhood we're more open to it, and as we move into adulthood, we sort of close ourselves off. But then if you start getting into this stuff, notice that people that are into it have all these experiences that other people don't have, and it doesn't mean that they're making it up or they're imagining it. They are creating scenarios that they're open to that other people simply aren't open to.
yes, yeah. It's super fascinating.
Yeah, well, it just shows you how much we create our own bubble of reality, and it's always
Right,
interesting when people that aren't into channeling or mediumship or any of those things, the skeptics of the world, they always have this thing where they think that we want to prove it to them somehow.
right,
And the truth is that in their bubble of reality, if it's not real, it's not real. So you're not
right,
going to prove it to them. And the thing about me, and I think a lot of people are probably like this, I don't need to prove it to anybody. To me, if you're not into it, don't be into it. If you're not
right.
into channeling, if you're not into law of attraction, if you're not in any of this stuff, then that's fine.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not looking to go out and prove anything to anyone or have anyone believe my ghost stories or not. If it's not your thing and you're not into it, well, you're probably not watching this. But if it's
Right.
not your thing, you're not into it, then simply don't be into it. Have your experience, and
Yeah.
the more we can reframe life, because think about, I'm getting really into a deeper topic now in the last few minutes.
Yeah.
Um, Look how polarized society is right now, more so than ever, as we're sort of splintering. Some people are moving more into that source connected awakening, let's detune fear and judgment space. That's what we're all about. But a lot of
Right.
other people aren't. A lot of other people are moving really into that super polarized, I'm right, you're wrong, my way is the only way, my way is the right way. And that's always been present, but it seems like that's becoming more acute.
Yes.
And I think that all the things that we're seeing right now, all of it's sort of like we went through this collective, almost like a trauma of the pandemic. It wasn't traumatic for me. I actually manifested an amazing path through the pandemic, but for a lot of people, it was very traumatic. And then from
Hmm.
there, now it's morphed into this whole thing about masks and vaccines and all of the stuff that's very polarized. That you're seeing a lot of people really having a super negative experience with it, and politics also is just seems like it's more polarized than ever. And this whole idea of I'm right, you're wrong, and I need you to agree with me. Why?
Yeah, I notice it too. And some of my thoughts on it is, I think you talked about it as the Great Reset. And so a lot more people are waking up, and there are just some people that don't like change. And so they're clinging to what they've always known much, much more, rather than kind of like being interested and just like allowing things to kind of transpire and
Yeah, well, the
morph
fear
and
of
change.
change in a world that is one thing that's guaranteed is change, right?
Right.
we're,
Right.
we're we're expansive. We're changing. We're all changing. We're all
Yeah.
growing, and we're all aging.
Hmm.
It's just that's change is inevitable.
Right. But I think there
So,
just becomes a
yeah, you're
lot of
right.
fear around it,
Yeah, the
and there's
the
just a
fear of
lot of
change,
fear.
the fear of the unknown, the fear of what's different,
Right.
the fear of being wrong,
Hmm.
the fear of being misunderstood,
Yep.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing that I find that's kind of interesting that I see, and we'll wrap up on this thought, is this idea of cancel culture. We could do a whole show just on that. In fact, we probably will.
Yeah.
Cancel culture, where not everyone is evolving at the same pace in their thought process. And I see things where people are evolving faster than others and getting comfortable with new ideas. And I see the value in allowing a tapestry of opinions on things. And we're seeing less and less and less of that in cancel culture, because now
Right.
it's like, this is where I am, and I need you to be exactly where I am. And if you're not where I am, then you're bad, evil, wrong, whatever, and you need to be canceled. And the whole idea of canceling someone is that we want you to just disappear.
Yeah.
That this whole idea now that we're moving into this more virtual type of reality where you can
Right.
cancel someone and they just disappear.
Yeah.
Blocking someone on Facebook, the whole idea of blocking people on Facebook, that was something that was relatively new to me. I never just cared about worrying about things such as that. And
Yes.
then I found out somebody got upset about something I said about being very open about politics, and they canceled me, and they blocked me on Facebook, and they're like in a group of friends, and I'm like, they blocked me on Facebook, like a 50-something-year-old man blocked me on Facebook, really?
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was it was just kind of a crazy concept, but it's like someone doesn't agree with you and makes you uncomfortable, so you just want them to go away.
Right.
They've got to disappear. They can't be anymore.
But it's,
Really,
yeah,
it's a
it is
really interesting
that
concept, right?
yeah, that fear of something different. And I see it too, because we get stuck so in our ways that we think our way is the only way. And I always want to explore it more, with certain people, as to why they get stuck like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're seeing it so
Well,
much right
it's all of that polarized, what we might call separated from source, polarized, really egocentric thought,
now.
where the source is not judging. So when we're in that space of not judging, we're at one with source. But when we start judging and separating, and we're moving into a more polarized, we're being more impacted by polarity, essentially.
Yes.
And that's when we need to be right, and we need our thing to be right. And
Right.
in order for us to be right, then someone else has to be wrong. But if you
Absolutely.
really eliminate the concept of right and wrong, that's a crazy concept for a lot of humanity. I'm going way off topic from ghost stories,
Yes. Yes.
but it all ties together.
No, it does.
All these things sort of weave together. And hi, Kat. Kat just came on and said, "Sorry to be late." Well, we told a bunch of really cool ghost stories, so you might want to go back and watch this from the beginning.
Check it
But
out.
somehow we ended up in the territory of cancel culture, and I'll take responsibility. But we do see a lot of that right now. And again, I'm not going to go. We can do a whole show on cancel culture,
Right.
but it's polarized.
Hmm.
Anything that's polarized, anything that is, you have to pick a side. You're not open to other ideas. You're not open to other people's ideas. You're not open to other people who might not be up to speed with your ideas.
Right.
That's the tough one. That's the one people seem to be having trouble with right now. Like, I am so evolved that I'm here in my thought process, and I want you to be allowing of me. But if you're not up to speed with me, I'm not going to be allowing of you.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do a whole show just on that.
No, it
We'll do it
is a great discussion for sure. Great
Yeah.
discussion.
We will do a Tya Talk. Our next Tya Talk, we'll jump in and we will do that and have a discussion on cancel culture. But this episode was all about ghost stories. It's Halloween week, at least in the United States. I think people's Halloween is celebrated beyond here for sure. But
Right.
it is Halloween week. And so we thought we would share our ghost stories. And we did. And we both had really cool ghost stories. So, Erica, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
a
Thank
lot of
you.
you watched and commented. So just continue the conversation in the comments whenever you're watching this. And really good ghost stories.
Yeah, you had some great ones.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I was telling, I'd forgotten about that one. I was retelling it and I remembered, God, that was really creepy. I remember how creepy that was. So if you're just catching this at the end, go back and watch from the beginning because we both had really cool stories. Erica, thank you again so much. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all tomorrow night, Thursdays at 5. Tomorrow night, I'm on with Debbie G live. I'll be channeling the stream on Claim Your Power Hour. Wherever you're watching us, we will be there as well. And of course, if you can't find us, you can always go to the Tya Practice Facebook group. These shows are live in that group every single week. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.